I think I'm a special one.
Fabregas, lovely ball threaded through. Costa, what a start!
Frank Lampard to win it. He's got it.
He's done it! The greatest night in the history of Chelsea Football Club.
Welcome back to Son of Chelsea. Daniel Childs here. Hope you're doing really well wherever you're watching or listening to this. We've got another brilliant guest. We had Liam Toomey from The Athletic and that got a lot of great feedback. Today it's Jan from Football Therapy. I've had Jan on the show a number of times throughout having the channel. I mean, especially since 2019, he's nearly on 200k YouTube subs. We speak about Enzo Maresca, what shocked him about the Chelsea season so far, why everything's going so well, and also looking ahead to the future. Now, I just want to clarify, this is kind of the first segment of our discussion, where we mainly talk about this season so far. The second part of this conversation will be coming up just before the new year, as we are mainly focusing on our Chelsea predictions for 2025. So make sure you stay tuned for that. A bit of content to look forward to after Christmas, just in that weird period between Christmas and New Year. So we'll be giving you our extensive thoughts and predictions for Chelsea in 2025. But this is the conversation. Please do like, subscribe, share, all of that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But let's get to the convo with Jan right now. Okay, so Jan, I've asked a lot of my guests, and I think I'll keep on asking my guests. I asked Liam this, I'll ask you this. Are Chelsea back?
Straight in with a big one. You have to say yes. I think we are back in respect to where we've been for a couple of years. I think we're back in. The fans are on board. There's just a clear cohesiveness and momentum, a massive scope for improvement still. I think there's an element of riding the crest of a wave. I do think Chelsea will face adversity and there'll be tests, and the immaturity and lack of experience will have to prove itself and develop and stuff. But more than anything else, what was Chelsea before? When, what are we going back to is the question as well. I think going back to is some fundamental stuff of Chelsea fighting, being together, beating Tottenham away, having a manager that's got a steeliness about him, not necessarily a Graham Potter type. And as much as, for all things I hear about Pochettino, he's like one of the nicest and sweetest men ever, which, by the way, I think is really important in this modern age. And I'm not actually saying this in regards to him having any affiliation to Tottenham. I just don't think, persona-wise, he feels like a very Chelsea manager. And I'd like to say at this point, Chelsea fans historically don't have a sense of entitlement. We never wanted to play flashy, attractive football. We just cared about, winning and, trying hard and upsetting the established elite early doors, and then sort of just muscling our way into the table. But I feel like something that was quintessential Chelsea for a long time was having certain leaders. And I think as more time goes by, listening to how Maresca, holds himself, says certain things. And I know it's kind of dumb, but he's Italian. We've done really well with Italians historically. And these little sort of relatively intangible things, I think, together are just boiling under the surface to the point of Chelsea back. Because you got to look forwards, right? You don't want to look back, because what is back? The landscape of the Premier League is ever changing, ever evolving. Certain elements of old won't work anymore in the modern landscape of football. But in terms of Chelsea fans believing in their team again, feeling like, to a degree, it's like the end. I keep saying like it's the bit of the end of the Shawshank Redemption, when Andy Dufresne comes out the other side, and even if he's not like king of the world, it feels like we've come out of the darkness. And in that sense, yes, Chelsea are back, I'd have to say.
I do agree with you that back to Abramovich era, that's the past now, like that. And maybe some fans don't want to see it as the past, but it just factually is the past. And obviously I've had some disagreements about Clearlake and the way they've approached things, but I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just kind of a general feeling of confidence and joy about the club that just hasn't been there for the past 2 years, that does make a huge difference, because it just feels over the past 2 years that so much of that was taken away for a variety of reasons, and it was very difficult, I think, for people to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And it's happened very quickly, this progression. I mean, the mood in the summer, I mean, I know you and I had some conversations about this, like, and I wasn't upbeat about the season. So it is credit to Maresca how quickly things have transformed. But I feel the way he's especially handled personnel, the fans, the media, all in one go, with actually... It's not like he's not a Conte figure. It doesn't feel like he's a combative figure, but it's kind of like a nice... He's balanced. I think he's a very balanced individual. It seems like he's kind of measured things together. It's not... He hasn't come in like a bull in a china shop and wanted to be like throwing out shots here and there. It's more... It kind of feels a little bit reserved, but authoritative enough where people have clearly gained respect for his judgment.
Yeah. I think the word you're looking for is well, combustible. I think he doesn't like, when you think Conte and Mourinho at times, he doesn't seem combustible. And like, I think he's impressed a lot of people because he just looks like he's just feels like he's completely in the zone, right? He's not overwhelmed by anything. He said everything right, and not in a way where he's overly protective of the project. He's just going, can I swear on this, Dan, or should I keep it PG?
I prefer to keep it PG if possible.
He says nonsense to all the stuff outside. He's like, it's chill, like, we know what we're doing, it's fine, you can talk if you want, whatever. But he's not being like vehemently overly protective. He's just sort of doing his thing. He looks completely in control, which is wild. I feel like more higher profile managers than him might struggle. Managers that are better than him at the moment, It just feels like oddly a perfect fit, which, even the most like biggest defenders of the project would have been surprised by. It's also worth mentioning, let's not be like overly gushy here. Like, we are playing in a peculiar season as well. Like, Arsenal are probably a bit off what they should be. Man City are in a Greek tragedy at the moment. So like we in another season we're fourth, right, rather than second. But despite that, with the same results as well, like with this roughly the same results, we could be fourth. Let's just say if things were different, right? Which immediate optics is different to second, right? Because people aren't talking, in my opinion, wrongly about a Chelsea title race. But I don't know if you want to get into that. But what the point I'm making is, I still think the sentiment would be largely the same of what you put to me, because we still probably would have been Tottenham away. We'd still be saying, oh yeah, Cole Palmer is still good. We'd still see this like, sort of coming of age performances of Enzo Fernandez. And I think, the 5-1 away when it's Saints, the Tottenham comeback, I think the fans would still be singing, we've got our Chelsea back in fourth, because it's what it represents. Do you know what I mean? It represents, okay, we've got a lot of players. Most of them seem happy. The Conference League seems like a bit of fun. It's like a sort of unique opportunity that we hopefully won't revisit, but one that we can actually really enjoy while we've got the youngest squad in the Premier League. And it's kind of all bit perfect for the moment. It's all kind of working really well. So whether that is second place behind, 4 points behind Liverpool, people saying, oh, the young Chelsea in a title race, or if they're like, in fourth place, maybe fairly comfortably going, wow, he's ahead of schedule. They're not in a just race for this top 4/top 5. They look like they're going to get top 4, The narrative is a bit different there, but I think the sentiment from the fans would be the same of, we're back on track.
Yeah, on the sort of, you have to contextualize it, right? Because in the summer, I mean, I predicted us in fifth. I don't know where you predicted us, if you did like a Premier League prediction.
Just quickly, I did express concern. I did quite like the appointment. At first, I was sort of like, if you excuse this like fleeting tangent, I was a little bit disappointed about or confused about the Pochettino sacking. When you learn a little bit more that it wasn't malicious, and it was kind of like, we're really happy we met each other. You did help us, Pochettino. He's probably quite happy he came to Chelsea. He had an experience. He didn't do his reputation any harm. Do you know what I mean? There's probably a bit of that, but they sort of all shook hands and had a laugh and walked away. I actually quite liked the Maresca appointment, but I was ready for pain, right? So, like, I might have been a bit like you. Like, I wouldn't have been really annoyed if we finished sixth again, but this time hopefully actually getting into the Europa League because of not the weird anomaly in the FA Cup. So that would have been a promotion in terms of European competition. Of course, one would have had to have said, we'd almost certainly win the conference, which would have offered that qualification. But I was prepared for regression in certain ways, that maybe goal scoring, but maybe I was looking for a little bit of more calm, because the thing is with Pochettino that I was just, even that 5-game winning streak at the end, it was never safe. It was always like, you know, I was standing up at the final 10 minutes of every Chelsea game. I wasn't sitting down. Do you know what I mean? So I just wanted a little bit more cohesiveness, even if that came with a hit. But I was kind of like neutral. I wasn't like gassing it up, but I was like prepared to see what we deemed was going to be a dogmatic football, but hasn't really been so much like that. But I wasn't necessarily negative. I was kind of like prepared for regression in some ways, but kind of understanding the change of direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it was understandable just based on what happened during the course of the summer, the amount of change, you know, internally behind the scenes, not even in terms of squad. I mean, the academy changes, the executive changes that were made, the stories that were even as recent as September about Bowley and Igbali falling out, like that still has happened this season. And it's easy to forget that all happened within the space of, you know, the last 6 months. And, you know, I think that gives credit. I was just going to say that, you know, we can look at the drop in form and levels of Man City and Arsenal, but I think it's also fair to look at the objective of this season of Champions League qualification. To me, I mean, that's kind of my belief. Chelsea have to qualify for the Champions League. I think I slightly disagree to you that I feel that there is quite a clear line of success and failure this year, and I think it is Champions League qualification. Luckily,
there's financial implications for that as well. Like if you listen to the experts, they'll say that needs to happen really.
Yeah, and but then you factor that in with who would we deem our natural rivals for that position, and you'd be looking at Aston Villa, you'd be looking at Spurs, you'd maybe also be looking at Man United if they have an all right year. All three of those clubs in varying ways in the Premier League have had difficulty so far this year. We absolutely pumped, you know, Aston Villa. I mean, that was a comprehensive battering of I think a very good Premier League team, especially last year, and obviously beating Spurs. So I think that kind of it's easy. We have a lot of discussions. I remember a lot in the Frank Lampard first season. A lot of it was like, 66 points. That would have never gotten you top 4. And I kind of think I understand it to an extent historically, but it also is you have to deal with the season you're in, and that's the season we're in. And Chelsea are second. We are actually 4 points away from the top of the league, of course, barring a game in hand. So all round, whatever way you look at it, whether you look at the drop in levels of different teams, I still think all round, I have to, you know, say I got it wrong. I think Enzo Maresca has done a fantastic job, and that's, you know, I think reflected as we've been talking about so far in kind of the joy amongst fans at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%, man. And also, like, I look at so the away win against Bournemouth 1-0, you know, with the Nkunku goal, which would be, you know, it's a great moment for him and a guy who's not getting the Premier League minutes. So that turns out to be a massive away win. Do you know what I mean? In the context of this season and what's going on and what they can do and the noses they can bloody. In a game we probably were outplayed with, we took all 3 points. You know, it's not just beating Tottenham. It's going 2 goals down at Tottenham and everyone thinking, oh, you know, we've got this like muscle memory of this recent inexperienced Chelsea team. It's more like these sort of like, you know, they are quantifiable. They're not unquantifiable. These moments where you think, do you know what I mean? It's not just the results in isolation. It's, in reflection, that result against that team's actually really freaking good. You know, that is really good. You know, that my biggest regret of the season so far is that we played Man City for Maresca's first ever Premier League game, you know, and that was, I know Rodri was on the bench or something, but that was before they descended into this kind of like freak out, you know. If we played Man City at home now, say instead of Brentford, say we played Brentford or whatever, and you've just got a draw against Brentford or something, but if we played Man City at home now, we beat them. Like there's no question. Do you know what I mean? So that's like, you know, a woulda, coulda, shoulda moment. But when you think that, like, you start doing these kind of not mental gymnastics, but these like different multiverse alignment things, that for me is showing like, actually we are, you know, super good. I'm not worried about a lot of stuff. And I feel like the biggest thing, which is testament to the gaffer, is there's this sort of new feeling of safety in what's happening, right? So you know, if that Tottenham win's huge, right? The narrative, because of the Cucurella boots, the comeback, and the fact that they didn't get their heads, and Jadon Sancho's first goal, second Premier League goal, but tapping the badge, and that was just huge for the fans. That one would have won over maybe some few disbelievers, especially old school Chelsea. That for them it's paramount beating Tottenham away, But aside that, we could have what I think will be a difficult time at some point in the season. I see it coming. I see a couple of results going bad, but I just feel like everyone thinks like, well, it's okay because the gaffer knows what he's doing. He's kept his powder so dry. He's obviously saying we're not on a title race, or whatever. But he's saying, look, I'm looking at the team and I'm seeing loads of stuff wrong. He wants Chelsea to become what Arsenal has become these last few years. And, you'd back us to score more goals than they have been purely because we've got better attacking personnel than them. But he wants to see this mentality, this consistency. And until we're there, he's not going to give you an inch. And I find comfort in that as well. Do you know what I mean? So there's a couple of things. I watched the Graham Potter on the High Performance podcast, and I think, empathetic guy. I feel like there's great strengths in that. Probably a really good coach. Upon reflection, you just see, and I was really excited with Potter because I thought, wow, he's going to be financially back to the moon. And finally, you might feel the same, Dan, as an Englishman. We get an English guy to win the Premier League. It's going to be a Chelsea manager. Do you know what I mean? But as time went on, you're just like, and I hate to be one of these people that he's not Chelsea, mate. He's not Chelsea. But I do believe in stuff like that, like a certain mystique. And upon reflection, he just doesn't feel like a Chelsea manager. And Pochettino, again, I know some people that have dealt with him. Apparently he's like the sweetest guy and like so caring, and he, historically has been quite a good coach, but I just never felt like this guy is the solution to the project, purely because of the wildly erratic nature of the season, conceding a record amount of goals when we've still got Thiago Silva and other defenders as well, so I'm just put my phone on silent. Other defenders as well we conceded, and that for me, I speak to you about non-Chelsea demeanor of coaches. For me, Chelsea is not a team that just concedes insane amount of goals. That's the most un-Chelsea thing for me. And maybe to a degree, Maresca is looking at this defense and conceding goals and thinking, I'm not going to talk about. Again, we both know by some distance the youngest team in the Premier League, the youngest. Bournemouth's the second youngest, and they've got the best part of 2 years average age on us. So we are by far the youngest team in the Premier League. He knows that he sees these goals being conceded. He's like, you're not getting a peep out of me talking about title contenders until I've seen my project developed into this consistent, more mature, even though they're young. We are not that kind of team. We're simply not that kind of team. And because he's got that persona, despite positive results and him admitting we're ahead of schedule, I just feel safe. And I've not felt safe as a Chelsea fan for a long time. Even in like the dying embers of Tuchel, there was this erratic nature, and of course the change of ownership, the sanctions prior to that. We've been through the trenches, Chelsea fans, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like actually, right, they know what they're doing. It's not just what we're seeing in front of us. It's, we've heard the good news today that Joshua Chiampong might be signing, this player Bayern Munich were promising first team minutes too. That was a big negative story, probably the big negative story. Looks like it's going to be resolved. We've got freaking Esteval Willian, who's breaking all Neymar's records. He's raking up trophies. The world football's talking about him. He's talking about joining Chelsea and chatting to Cole Palmer. That's in the bag, bro. That's coming. We might sign an elite centre forward that profiles as a Maresca striker, and it could be an Osimhen or someone. This could all come on top of what's happening now, and there's scope for that. So I just feel calm, and that's just such a blessing as a Chelsea fan. That I feel like, right, they actually know that it's working for now, and that's the biggest thing for me.
There certainly is a feeling that the problem that I think has been so far under his ownership is this pendulum feeling at times. Especially, it was more so last season. The first season was just generally awful, but the Pochettino season you reference was, it kind of felt like every time we had a bad result, the manner of the results were so chaotic, and we, as you say, we'd concede a load of goals. I remember the Wolves defeat at home was a pretty bad one where the fans started to turn. The Liverpool Cup final was was naturally, you lose a cup final in that manner, it's always going to be heartbreaking.
To
but
Liverpool
kind
again, Liverpool.
Yeah. And also the Liverpool B team, like we're
Mm.
effectively Liverpool C team, and we didn't take control. And there were so many moments of that during the course of the season that made it such a weird one, probably the weirdest Chelsea season I've ever seen in my life, because the way it ended, you wouldn't have predicted that a few months in, given how poor our form was. I just wrapping up this segment before we move on to looking towards 2025. Another kind of big question, and you can take it any way you want, is kind of what is the biggest shock so far for you this season from Chelsea? It can just be, I guess, the positives of everything, but is there a specific one that maybe not enough people are talking about?
I mean, I'll branch out a little bit on it, but I think it is the manager, and because we signed Maresca, right, and because he was like the sporting directors who hadn't gained people's trust yet, they thought maybe they were gaining trust in terms of a bit of creative accounting, locking down great talents, making good signings, at the time, Lavia, who hadn't really played, but, certainly Gusto and, Noni Madueke, Jackson for under £30 million. Palmer looks good. Lavia, there was like, okay, so they're not idiots. They're doing some good stuff with Joe Shields there. But I think everyone was scarred by Graham Potter because there was like, they were so romanticized about the sort of Moneyball Brighton project that they thought they could literally just scale up with their personnel almost. Now, to their credit, to a degree, they kind of have scaled that up, but in their own way with other stuff. But they thought they could literally just, latch onto Brighton and do that. That created the big concerns, and that's what sort of created us as a bit of a meme. That was probably a damaging thing, and because of the Graham Potter, again, nothing against his character. I like empathetic characters. I think showing vulnerability is the greatest demonstration of strength, personally. And I think we need a lot more of that in football. But it was eminently an incorrect appointment, even though Potter himself had such a rough deal. He had freaking players in the hallway getting dressed. He drew Man City away in both cups, and he did have a really rough ride. But despite all that, it was inappropriate. So when you're saying, right, we're going to give the Chelsea job to a guy who's been managing in the Championship, I wasn't one of these people that just looked to that and brushed it away. I actually got a little bit excited because. Purely because of Potter was a lot of Pochettino was such chaos ball that I thought this is going to bring some order. We've got Cole Palmer, the king of the world. We've got good attackers. Nico Jackson will score goals, and Kunku will be fit. We were signing players in the summer, exciting players. The wingers like Sancho and Neto. I was so excited for Neto. Still am.
Yeah.
Joao Felix is a bit of fun. He was a sort of an opportunistic signing where he reduced his wages dramatically, and we got for 38 million quid. This is still a guy who's yet to turn 25 at the time and cost 120 million not too long ago. So it all seemed like, okay, this guy's going to bring order, and we've got loads of amazing players. Hopefully this will be less stressful. But the shock factor, which is your question here, there's a few things where people thought he was going to be two things. This dogmatic coach who might be a bit reminiscent to Sarri ball, the sort of more unpleasant elements of Sarri ball, and he's going to be this company yes man. Right. Now, to start with the yes man thing, people who knew Maresca were like, no, he's a fiery character. He's not going to take any, so-and-so from the people. I do actually think he is a bit of a yes man for the sporting directors, but I think he's kind of doing it in his own way, and he's presenting it as his own way because he's pulling with theirs. I feel like they are really, really singing off the same hymn sheet. He knows what an opportunity is at Chelsea. I think personally, the Ben Chilwell thing is him, Maresca. I like Ben Chilwell, but I think it's so clearly a profiling issue that fine, that. But like other players, certainly like Raheem Sterling on gargantuan salary, I don't think he's just been like, I'm just going to freeze out Sterling because I don't want to use him. I don't think he does. In fact, I do think Sterling, I don't think he'd be first choice for Maresca, but I think his profile actually suits Maresca closer than a Mudryk, for example. I'm not saying I want Sterling because I think he is quite washed now, but like, I do think personally they've said, look, this guy's on 300k a week. You've got loads of other talents. Maybe people you start ahead of him. Can you work with us here. And that's why I reckon he's probably said, I've told him he's not for me, sort of thing. So I do think, and I don't mean this in a negative way, I mean this in a complimentary way, that he's working with the gang, that I reckon there's an element of yes man there. But to the other thing, he's just not been this dogmatic coach at all. And I'm guessing because of Leicester, he was forced to really work with what he had. And he's like, this is the way to play football. We'll drill it into them. He won the title. It worked. But with Chelsea, he's like, you know what? I've got really ruddy good players here, and we can shift it around a little bit. And of course, he's still inverting a fullback, but he's inverting different fullbacks. He's inverting them into CDM, into the 10 half spaces. He's moving, players that are predominantly on one side to the other, like Cole Palmer to the left pocket. Reece James at left back, which kind of worked for a little bit. And he's done a conventional 4-2-3-1 when neither fullback inverts a couple of games ago, whatever it was, where we saw like an actual just double pivot, and it's all working. So actually, comparatively to some of the other elite coaches in the league, he's being one of the most tactically innovative and changing coaches from what I've seen, because he still wants to predominantly reach that shape of the 3-2-4-1, when that shape and different players get into those half spaces, whether it's a fullback or whatever, or an Enzo and a Cole Palmer. He still wants to make the same shape 80% of the time, but he's showing he'll play differently as well, which is really, really, impressed me. And he's not gone Graham Potter, oh my God, back 3, oh my God, back 5, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh my God, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to get him in? It's the opposite of that. There was a little bit there under Lampard. I'm a Lampard believer, personally. I don't think he's the best coach in the world, but I think he's never failed at any of his jobs, which is, I feel he gets unfair criticism, Lampard, but we're not going to break down his career here. But I think Maresca, what has surprised me to sort of bring this home is the flexibility, the tactical flexibility, and that's... So for a long answer, for different reasons, I think the manager has to be the biggest shock.
No, especially about the style of football, that's something I've been wrapping my head around and trying to gauge as we've got more evidence of, because everything that was sold about Maresca was he's this positional play, possession-based coach who's going to come in and he's going to do this and he's going to do that, and it's going to be quite slow, it's going to be turgid, and the fears culturally of that banging up against Chelsea fans who, I think there was already quite a disgruntled kind of feeling about another change in head coach and what that could entail. And absolutely, I think that the nice thing about Maresca is I think he's very much appreciated the higher caliber of player he's got, absolutely, but also not to stifle the attacking development that we saw last year. Like the thing I keep on bringing up is you look at our attacking numbers. I mean, it's incredible to think where we were at the end of Tuchel under Graham Potter, where like our attacking players could barely hit 10 goals a season, and now we've got multiple players that I could look through. Jackson, obviously Palmer. I even think Noni Madueke could hit over 10 goals this season. That's a remarkable feat given where we were in the attacking sense. I felt there was a massive irony in Timo Werner being on that pitch as Chelsea, walloped Spurs and, showed sort of the new age of Chelsea attackers. I thought that was great. But no, I agree. It's also great in an age where it does feel like there is a lot of dogma around the style of football you have to play. And I don't think in a lot of cases it helps, because in the case of Ange Postecoglou, I think you become a very naive and kind of one-paced football team that is very easy to work around. Or in an extreme case of Southampton, you just don't have the quality of players to play that football, so you're being exposed on a weekly basis. It's great, I think, that Maresca has used the tools at his disposal. Sure, we can play a bit of possession football if we want, but we've also got great speed and attack, and I don't think he's tried to limit that, which is great.